friends. Welcome to episode 306 of School Librarians United. I'm your host, Amy Herman. This podcast is dedicated to the issues and challenges school librarians face every day. As a school librarian in my 18th year, I knew I wanted a podcast which addressed the nuts and bolts of running a successful library program. I don't claim to have the answers, but I hope that this is a platform to share resources and exchange ideas. Now is a perfect time to mention that all the ideas and opinions expressed in this podcast by myself, my interview guests, and listeners who reach out to the podcast are our own and do not reflect those of our school districts. When incorporating research, I always make sure to cite my sources. So whether you are a novice or a veteran school librarian, this podcast has something for you. I welcome you and all listeners to reach out with your feedback and episode suggestions. You can reach me either on Bluesky at SLU Podcast or on X, formerly known as Twitter. My handle is at LMS_United. On Facebook, Instagram, and Threads, you can find me at School Librarians United and the email address schoollibrariansunited@gmail.com. If you include your mailing address, I'll be sure to send you a podcast sticker. It is now my pleasure to introduce Learnix, our newest podcast sponsor. If you are overwhelmed with managing student research projects and wish that there were a better way to guide students towards credible sources and ethical research practices, then you need to try Learnix. Learnix automatically documents your students' research journeys, capturing their searches, website visits, and notes. Learnix then organizes the students' notes, creates perfectly formatted bibliographies, and even generates a snapshot report that reveals key insights into how the student conducts research. With Learnix, you can provide personalized feedback, identify research challenges, and teach information literacy skills more effectively. Visit Learnix.com to learn more and schedule a demo. Enjoy Learnix for the remainder of the year at half the price. And if you mention that you heard about Learnix on School Librarians United, you will receive 20% off your subscription. And now for today's episode, Middle School Library Essentials, and my conversation with Katie Capshaw. Capshaw, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here, Amy.
Friends, we are incredibly lucky. Katie and I, we've crossed paths over the years. I know we have. But I think the last time we saw each other was at the Tennessee Association of School Librarians annual conference last September.
That's right.
Would you introduce yourself and tell us about your library, the grades you serve, and maybe a little bit about your schedule? Because today is going to be all about your space and your programs.
Okay, sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Katie Capshaw. I'm from Tennessee. I have also worked in education in Georgia and North Carolina. This is my 19th year as an educator. I currently am a middle school librarian. I've been doing so for, I think this is my 9th year. I get lost in the numbers. I was an elementary librarian for about 3.5 years. I did that terrible thing and left in the middle of the year. Had to escape elementary library. I have so much respect for elementary school librarians. That is tough. But middle school is my jam. Before I was a librarian, I was a middle school teacher. I taught English, language arts, and sometimes social studies too at the same time. So that is where I work currently. I'm on my second middle school just across the county. We just moved and my kids went to this school. I love my old school. I love my new school. This is my 3rd year there. It's kind of weird because it's the same like building layout. So it was so weird to move to a new building, but it was the same. So it was really weird. But it also made it easy to transition my library because it was the same like room, but in a different location. So it was wild.
That's wild. I've never heard of anything like that. But let's just back up for a second because you did move in the middle of a school year.
I did.
Nobody will fault you for that, by the way, because at the end of the day, you need to go where you're best utilized, where you're most happy. We don't pick those opportunities.
We don't.
That's all. Those are done by other people. You are not in charge. I can imagine, though, like moving in the middle of the year, it has to have really been sort of like a very unfamiliar feeling on your part.
It was really tough to do. It was a tough decision, but I really knew that middle school is where I belonged. And that's just when the opportunity came available. I ran and applied. They offered me the job on the spot. thankfully, my elementary school was able to fill my spot that same day. They had a lovely lady who was looking to get back into the game. She'd been out for a while, and she took over, and she did a great job. So it worked out beautifully. But yeah, I was like, I got to get there. I got to get to middle school.
Well, and I'm sure because it was so amicable that you were more than willing to aid in the transition, available for phone calls, emails, whenever it's a good move, you want to make sure you leave on good terms.
Absolutely. The new librarian and I, we became friends through the process, and she called me all the time, and we chatted, and I helped her out. It was great. I love that about librarians and teachers too, but that we help each other. We're there for each other. It became a great network, and she did a great job throughout her time there too as well.
Well, and you had left your heart and soul in that library. I mean, you had been there, you had built it, you had invested your emotional bandwidth into creating a space that you could be proud of, and in theory, stay there for quite a while. Now somebody else is going to be taking over, and you really don't want to see it fall to pieces.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
So time to brag about all your leadership that you have done with Tennessee Association of School Librarians. You have never shied away from an opportunity.
I don't know about never shied away. I definitely said no the first few times I was asked, but they convinced me. So I have been, since I've been a librarian, and even when I was in school in Georgia to be a librarian, I have joined the state association. So as part of the Georgia School Library Media Association, when I was in North Carolina, I was part of the NC SLAMA, and I just realized the value of that. So as soon as I moved to Tennessee, I joined right away. I went to my first conference, my very first year here. I'd only been on the job a month or two. I volunteered just to help host a session because I thought, it's time for me to get involved and really network. I don't hardly know anybody here. I happened to, at that time, meet the president. He was about to be the president-elect. And he was in charge of kind of the volunteers. We had a connection because he's from where my mother-in-law's from, and I'd never met anyone else in the wild from there. And we might know
Dustin?
him.
Is this Dustin?
This is not Dustin. This is Blake Hopper, the one and only.
Okay, so yes, if you say he and Tennessee, I got a 50-50 shot. Yeah. I got a 50-50 shot. Yep. Blake Hopper and Dustin Hensley.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So in this case, it was Blake Hopper.
It was Blake Hopper. So we connected and just chatted at the desk. And the next thing I know, a few months later, I'm getting a phone call asking me to take over, not from Blake, but from the current president, but found out later he had slipped my name in, asking me to take over the summer PD session, be the co-chair, having never attended a summer PD in Tennessee, having no idea, but somehow got convinced to do it. And I said yes. I'm a yes girl, and people figure that out really quick. It's bad. So I said yes to that. I ran that for a couple of years. Through COVID, we did our very first online professional development session. We were crazy and did it over 6 days, thinking that we would just do a couple hours. Ended up 6 full days. It was a nightmare, but it was great. We had 300 people attend that summer of 2020. It was wild. So I was the groundbreaker. And then they asked me to be president, and I said, that's going to be a no. And then they came back later and asked again, and then they sicked Blake on me. And so, using your friends against you is always a good way to go. Yeah. So he convinced me. I said, why me? I'm not qualified. No one will listen to me. Who will follow me? Why would you have me be a leader? President? That's crazy. I'm just a little old middle school librarian, just trying to make my way through. And he was like, you have a lot to say. You have a lot of potential to be great. I do love a microphone, so they did tap into that. But for the most part, I'm just a regular old librarian who said yes. So I became the president. 2021 was my president-elect conference chair year, which if you remember, 2021 was kind of a tricky year. And so I was the first conference after COVID, first in-person conference after COVID. That was a nightmare. I mean, it was great. It was so fun. And then 2022 was my presidential year. So when you say yes to president in Tennessee, it's a 3-year commitment. So my presidential year was 2022. And if you can remember a couple of years ago, that was quite an interesting year in the state of Tennessee legislature and several other of us wonderful southern states and some Midwest too. So in through that, somehow I have the governor's office in my phone, calling me on the regular basis into my middle school library. Oh, excuse me, I have to take a call from the governor's office. What in the world? Who am I? I've been to the state capitol. I've been in the basement in a room, like the room where it happens, right? With a bunch of other people, obviously. Lots of librarians were in this together, so it wasn't just me all alone. I had a great team. I've met some senators. Somewhere along the way, I got nominated to the State Textbook Commission. I really just don't know what's happening with my life, but it's weird. And then, luckily, 2023, my past presidential year was pretty smooth sailing. That's just when I had to join the Textbook Commission, which I'm still there. So you can call me Commissioner Capshaw. No, I'm just kidding. So, yeah, it was wild.
I think what happens, and there are people tuning in right now who are like nodding their heads. Yep, they're sort of like once they have you at yes, it's just a matter of time. It's just the sort of this slow burn, but it's a progression, and there is an agenda that is not yours, but somebody has created a whole plan for you, and so I think they were smart, and they got a great deal out of you in terms of all of your effort and your passion and your energy and your time. And the Tennessee Association of School Librarians is such a solid group. I met the core group when I was there. I was there for about 26 hours. 26 hours, and it was a whirlwind, and it was amazing and fantastic, and everybody, just a really tight and group that worked together, to make sure that there was that continuity of leadership. And it's wonderful. It's fantastic because I sense that everybody was really pulling their own weight and making sure that nobody felt at all put upon. So no, it was absolutely inspiring. I loved meeting all of you, had such a fun time.
They really are an amazing group of people. And it really has changed my life and my career. Like, I have so much more confidence in myself and my ability just by stepping out with that yes, and just being willing to be like, oh, somebody believes in me. I guess I can do this. And then being able to, as the past president, nominate the next group and really pull in the next group of leaders and say the same thing to them. They all say the same thing. Why me? I can't do this. And I'm like, yes, you can. Like, you have so much value. You have so much to say, and you're doing a great job, and you can lead others into this. Like, there's no like magic potion that we have. Like, we just do what we do, and we do it well, and we can share that with others. And just like the platform and things that I've gotten, and just in my career, like, people think I'm a big deal, and I'm like, I'm not a big deal. I'm just a middle school librarian who is willing to share that with others. And I think all of us should do that, really be advocates and believe in ourselves. And I think that just was really, and everyone who's been a president says that, like, it's just really life-changing, and what it does to you as yourself with your confidence and just all those things. So it's really great. I just encourage everyone to be part of their state library association. It's really important to support it and just get involved, volunteer. If you don't want to be president, I get it, but do something to help them, because they really are your lifeline.
And something that I really love about meeting with librarians at their conference, I was able to, wrangle some more episodes out of the Tennessee School Librarians. And friends, I do want to direct your attention in the show notes of every episode. There's something called Search by author, state, and title. And then today, to top it all off, we're going to have 2 presentations, which Katie has done on separate occasions. We're going to combine it into one masterclass. Can't use the word masterclass because it is trademarked, but it's going to be Middle School Library Essentials with Katie Capshaw. So thank you so much for joining us today. Given your wealth of experience and years specializing in middle school librarianship, I love the title of today's episode. It seems like this is your specialty.
Absolutely. I love middle school. It's really my jam. The kids are weird, and I love it. I've just gotten used to it, and I really enjoy it. And this is going to be like a fast and furious, all the things that you need to know about middle school libraries and how to be successful and why you should love it. Everyone should be a middle school librarian. It's amazing.
Well, and I think the people who are especially benefiting from this conversation are those of us who will find ourselves either by chance or by choice, teaching in a middle school library. And the reason why I love people like Katie Capshaw is because not only have they taught in middle schools, but they love the grade levels. They love the space. They love the programs. This is clearly something that you have now chosen to invest your heart and soul in. And this, you found your home.
Yeah.
and I know that comes out in your presentations. I didn't ever get to see you present live, so this is how we're cheating. We're going to bring you in and let everybody benefit from your passion and your expertise. So, both of these presentations, you have been incredibly generous in sharing photos. And that is so incredibly, especially when you consider the audio format of a podcast. I love that the listeners are going to be able to go and do that deep dive with not one, but two of your presentations that you have really gone to great effort to put together. Very compelling, very revealing. And I really feel like I kind of took a tour of your space without ever leaving. But I think anybody who wants to replicate even a fraction of the success that you've had in your space has a really good shot because we've got those visuals to go on. But I thought it was really interesting because you included a wonderful quote by R. David Lenkes. And I sense that this guides you in the decisions that you make because you chose to include it in both your presentations. Quote, bad libraries build collections, good libraries build services, great libraries build communities, end quote.
Yes, I really use this to drive. I believe that the library should be the heart of the school, the heart and soul of the school. But I also think that it should build a community. Like your library should build a community of readers, of learners, of makers, of all those things, not just provide services and books and a place for everyone just to dump things, but an actual community. That's really what my goal is.
I do like how you said dump things because who among us hasn't been the lucky recipient of things that just find themselves over into our space? You always hold your breath that first day you walk in after summer break or any break or a weekend, and there's something greeting you on your desk, on your counter, in your office, in your workspace. You're like, oh, somebody decided to move out and leave all these things they don't want anymore in my space.
One summer, I came back, my very first middle school, so it was my first full year. I came back, and they had emptied out the trophy cases and put trophies all over the tops of my bookshelves. So I walk into the first day of PD. From now on, I always go earlier now. I walked into the first day of PD with trophies covering my bookshelves. And I'm telling you, I lost my mind. And then I was told, they're your problem. So we did a lot of creative things. They moved. They did not stay in the middle of the library. But lots of people got trophies throughout the time I was there for different things. We reused them. Some trophies ended up in file 13. It was quite the wild adventure. But yeah. And one year, when I first moved to this school where I am now, they had gotten carpet over the summer. So the previous librarian had packed up the library. I walked into everything moved, shelves not there, and all boxes, and the air conditioning was out. And it was summer. It was July in Tennessee. So yeah, you just never know.
The library I currently have, I was the first person to go into it after the sort of immediate pandemic period, during which many of our spaces were used as storage for furniture. Because if you remember, if you were teaching students during the pandemic, we had to get the kids physically far away from each other, which meant that you had fewer pieces of furniture in each room. So you would have to take much of that furniture and move it to a place that it wasn't going to. And then we were also, in many cases, not checking out books. So I walk into my space, all the furniture has been moved to one side of the room. And I asked my predecessor, who happens to still work in the building, I said, do you have a floor plan? And there was no floor plan. I was like, there's no floor plan? They're like, no, just put everything where you want it to go. I was like, and as somebody who had never worked in the building before, I didn't have a sense of the floor plan or the movement of people. Like, I think that we talk about anthropology and like watching students move and integrate themselves with the space and the services and the things that we offer. And you watch them and you see the direction that they go and where the large numbers congregate, and you want to sort of accommodate that. But if you have no sense of that,
no idea,
you're like, oh man, what a rude way to sort of that's baptism by fire, friends.
Right, for sure. Like, that's how it is in the library.
Yep. Ready or not, here we go.
Here we go.
When choosing to make the middle school library as welcoming and as inviting as possible, because this is this community that you're and the heart of the school. I thought it was very telling that you focused on the books first. And I think that messaging is very strong and it's very important. And there are a lot of people there. I notice there are people who feel, a makerspace has, when you're trying to weigh, where is that emphasis on your space? What messaging do we put out first? And when you have chosen, clearly the books come first. And I think that's very intentional because I don't think every librarian feels that way. And I think that oftentimes we promote the things we are most proud of, the things we can, feel are most beneficial to the people who are coming into our space. And we have to sort of customize that depending on the audiences that we're supporting. But for you, it was the books first and foremost.
Yeah, listen, I love Makerspace. I'm a proponent. I won an $81,000 grant for Makerspace. Yeah, when I was in elementary school. So, I love Makerspace. Like, that is my jam. But it's a library, first and foremost. And my main goal is to help students love reading. So books, I felt like when I was going through this presentation, you're exactly right. I thought, I got to talk about the books first because it is most important. And I don't want anyone to ever forget that it's a library because I have seen how this works. When we begin to have those cool, innovative things, our books disappear and the library, like some people will take that coolness and then all of a sudden you don't need a library anymore. And that's just not real. That's just not true. We need to have libraries and books now more than ever because that's how students connect to the world because they're not doing a good job of that. That's another podcast for another day. So yes, books were first and foremost when I was doing this presentation. And so I just feel like we need to really focus on it. It seems like it's a library, but I've been in a lot of libraries and I'm sure you have too. I've had 5 libraries of my own. And sometimes the books are a hot mess. Sometimes there aren't very many books. Sometimes they're old. Sometimes the shelves are crammed full and you can't even find anything. So I think just talking about the books and helping new librarians and even librarians maybe who've been in their space for a while and you start to get complacent or you're just not sure what to do, it's always good to talk about the books and how we're going to make sure that kids can shop those books.
Well, and I think especially because at the middle school, there is this sort of teetering point.
Absolutely.
You've got this point where, in many cases, the kids aren't coming like a special. It isn't release time for their teachers. And so the concern is that as students sort of move from an elementary schedule to one that is more flexible, that not having that structured time to come and check out books every week might mean that some really strong readers just aren't feeling that same pull, that same opportunity. It is absolutely vital that whatever culture of reading has been instilled in our young readers, as they move into the middle school setting, we don't lose them.
Right, exactly. Yeah, because at elementary, they love the books. When they come in as 6th graders, they're still pretty hooked. And you really have to work to keep them that as 8th graders.
Absolutely. Well, this high school librarian really appreciates when there's still evidence of a love of reading when those incoming 9th graders come. So let me ask you, you've obviously featured your brand new purchases. On average, how often do you purchase books?
So I get one sum of money. They usually divide it over like 2 different periods where you can get them. But at my school, they let me just spend it like on credit or whatever. I usually try to do 2 big orders, one in the fall and one in the spring. And then I usually try to save a little bit of money for, if I need to grab a new book or a new series or one popular one's lost. So, but 2 big orders, one in the fall and one in the spring. I have a permanent place in my library for new books. It was this like weird spinny rack thing that they had like weeded books on when I got there. And I felt like it would be a good place to put new books. So my kids know this is where we always go to find a new book. I sort of, when I have a big order like that, I keep most of them back behind my desk on a cart, and I put out just a few at a time. Because we'll talk about scheduling in a minute, but the way I see students, I want to make sure that not the very first class I learn this like rookie mistake, put them all out. And then the first couple of classes get all the new books, and then the rest of the kids are like, For me, I see 8th graders first. So I don't want the 8th graders to get all the new books and the 6th graders get nothing. So we kind of just fill it up as we go. And then oftentimes I'll pull them back for their second and third circulation and still view them as new because they're still new this year. Try to do that just to kind of keep a place where they can always find them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So you mentioned that displays are really important.
Mm-hmm.
Are you changing these on a monthly basis? Are they thematic? Are they seasonal? What is it that you have found attracts the most interest when it comes to your middle schoolers?
Yeah, displays I'm not super fantastic at, but I do have a main part of my library a main wall where I have a new display. I generally change those every month. I'm on kind of like a 3-week rotation myself. I am on a flexible schedule, but I put myself on that. So about the time that they're coming back for a new rotation, it works out to be about once a month with breaks and stuff. But and it just depends. I do try to do a lot of the like Women's History Month, Black History Month, Hispanic Heritage Month. I got called on the carpet for not doing Asian American Month last year because it happens in May. And in May, we're pretty much shut down for inventory and we have to collect all the laptops. So I had a friend that was like, why don't you do Asian American Month? And I was like, because it's in May. And I was like, I'm so sorry. I promise I'll do it early. I'll put it in April, like after I'll skip through poetry or something. And she's like, well, I'm in 8th grade, so my brother can enjoy that. And I was like, oh my gosh, fail. I have failed. So, but that's what the kids are good for. They'll just tell you like it is. And she was sweet. She didn't mean anything by it. And I appreciate that. Like her heritage deserves to be talked about. So worst case, I'll do it in August, and say, hey. And then sometimes I'll do like this month it was January and I know it's MLK Day, but we usually highlight him in February. So I just pulled books that were blue and was like, if you have the winter blues, grab a blue book. And they were looking I was like, it's the most creative I've ever been, all the sarcasm. And they were just like, okay, Miss Capshaw, you're so weird. But they took them. I just walked through the shelves and picked random blue books. So it kind of depends on my mood, but I always highlight it when the classes are there. I was like, this is the display this month. Some of them shop better than others. I will say Women's History Month isn't like a huge shopped section, but it's there. They need to know that it's a thing, so it just depends. Usually like at the beginning of the year, I'll be like the books missed you and I'll just put all of Miss Capshaw's favorite books and they like to shop those too.
Well, and I love that when students feel invested enough in the library and the librarian that they're going to be candid with you.
Yeah, I loved it.
And not in a snarky way. Like this is absolutely about making this space more reflective of the interests and needs of your students.
Absolutely.
And I think that's absolutely wonderful. It's humbling.
Oh yeah.
It does remind you that we can always do better.
Always do better. And I knew it was a thing and I felt bad for not being able to highlight it, but I was like, okay, Katie, you've got to figure out a way to do this. I've got more than one space I can make a display. So I can have poetry and a little bit early Asian American, month. So we're going to work on that this year. I made a note in April of my calendar for this year. Don't forget. So for my friend's little brother.
I use, I'm going to say right now, I don't have a lot of places to do displays, but I have so many tables in our space of different shapes and sizes all over. And so we have those little wire tables, little book stands, just the little, and I have at least 100 of those little wire book stands. And I just, whenever I have a chance, I put 2 books on every table. And
that's a great idea.
Those, I just put the books on top of every single table where students sit. And those are the ones I end up having to replenish because the kids are sitting there, whether they want to be there or not, whether they're there for, something that's happening before, after, or during the day. And that's, there's nothing formal about it, but those are going to be where my new books go.
That's a great idea. I'm going to have to use that. I'm going to steal that idea, Amy.
Yeah. So just when you look around, it's like almost like every single table has 2 little books on it, and it's really fun. So when it comes to genrifying, this isn't a hard argument to make. In front, most people see the value of genrifying. Is there a genre that middle schoolers have been gravitating towards, or one that you feel is especially vitally important when you're supporting this age group?
They love scary books. I don't read scary books. So I've had even elementary kids always like, where are the scary books? Before I genrified, and I was like, well, I know like 3 scary-ish authors, So that's why I genrified. So they love the scary section. And I love the scary section because I could be like, they're like, which books are scary? And I'm like, all of these are scary. And then I'll be like, I don't read scary books. Like, I'm just honest. Like, I don't like to be scared. Like, the world is scary. I work in a middle school. Like, I'm scared enough. And they're like, good point. They understand. They go to middle school. And so I just say like I know that students, these are the most popular ones. And if you like this kind of thing, you'll probably like this, So that helps me book talk easier. They love that. They love romance, which is really difficult in middle school. But I work really hard to make sure we have appropriate romance. And it's almost always checked out, most of it. And of course, graphic novels and manga. Again, you got to be careful with the manga and age appropriate. It's lovely because they have ratings on them. So that's super. Once I discovered that, I was like, whoa. So those are the most popular sections. And sports, I would say, probably comes in next is sports. And I just genrified fiction, for the record. I haven't genrified nonfiction necessarily. Biographies, I did sort of a genrifying with the biographies to try to help them go better, and that's worked really well. And it's for me too, because they'll be like, I need a wrestler. That's how we say it in the South, a wrestler. And I was like, give me the name of a wrestler. And they were like, oh no. And I was like, me either. So it's just really helped in that case. I also did one kind of crazy thing with historical fiction. I always say I do crazy stuff. It may be a dumb idea, but I'm going to try it. So historical fiction, isn't necessarily the most shop section, but I love historical fiction personally. But I also found they were like, I want a World War II book. I want a book about this. And so what I did with my historical fiction is I actually went and broke it down into eras before Taylor Swift made it a thing, but now it's a thing, into eras. And so I have from like medieval all the way up to modern history. So like, God bless us, 1990 is historical. And forward, like I have books about the pandemic, like fiction books, and I have those because one day they will be historical. And that I had students probably talk to me the most about that and clear bins in the manga section. Those are the most popular things I've done. They were like, this is so great, Miss Capshaw. So I recommend that if you get to that point. Those are some wild ideas that I had.
No, I love this idea of breaking the historical fiction down by period because it's not unusual for my students to want Holocaust/Nazis.
Right.
Yes, we want Nazis. We want stories about hiding the Jews, right, and defeating the Nazis, and that is really important. And what is the biggest shocker for somebody like me is that 9/11 is historical.
Absolutely.
Like, but I was there. And for us as educators, you were either a student during 9/11 or you were a teacher during 9/11.
Right.
And I fall into the latter. I was a high school teacher during 9/11. And yes, it was an unforgettable experience for everyone. So
yeah. It's been great, though. They really do like it. They do love. I actually separated Holocaust from World War II because I feel like they're different.
Oh, yeah.
Like so I have and there's so many of them, so it helped break it up. So just World War II versus actual Holocaust.
Forgive me, is that in as a sublocation, or are those signed? Do you actually have sort of like a signed, a different space for those books? Do you have a visual that students can see so that they can see these are the books about the Holocaust, these are the books about World War II, these are American Revolution, these, so you use signs.
So on the historical fiction section, it's a big shelf of like 3 or 4 shelves. What I did, because we use the genre labels, and so what I did is I took those colored label covers, and I have a different color for each period or era, as we call them. And I also, that's easy for them to shelf. I have not put that in the catalog that way. I'm debating back and forth. I always try to think about who's going to take over after me. Not that I intend to leave, but I always do. And I try not to do too many crazy things that they will like cry about or have to fix or go backwards. So I haven't done anything in the catalog. They just are sublocation historical. But they have that label cover, which is easily removable if the next person hated it. And then I just have a label maker, and I stick a label from the label maker right onto the shelf itself, like onto the front of the shelf. And voila. So if you want World War II, you just find the little thing that says World War II. All those books are a blue tint, and that's how it is.
Got it. Well, and really, anytime we empower our students access to our collection, they feel more confident as readers. So this is always time well spent, because our students invariably are going to feel more capable in that space, and they're going to feel assured that when they are looking, they're going to find something that connects with something that they find interesting. And I think that's what's so daunting. You have this paralyzing effect with this abundance of choice. It's sort of like me in front of the salad dressing section in the grocery store. Like there's a wall of salad dressing, and
or the cereal
I'm
aisle.
just stuck. I was like, I don't know what to do, and I just stand there, and I'm not everybody else, we're just sort of standing there in this wall of salad dressings, and I'm just like, I almost don't even want to try. I'm just going to be wasting time and come out disappointed. So no, I think this is a great thing. I absolutely do. You mentioned signage. What about your signage is especially intended to support your middle school visitors?
So I've tried a lot of different things, some cutesy things, some trendy things. And at my new school, I didn't want to spend a ton of money, and I had an epiphany. Actually, it was an accident. It was a happy accident. The labels, and I don't even know if this is legal. So the labels that Demco makes, I highly recommend. I just copied the picture off the website and blew it up. And so that same label that's on the book, I put on the side of the shelf. So as they walk down the middle of the shelves, they can see that label right there. And then also I made them, I meant to make them just small and put them in those little IKEA kind of, except I got them from Amazon, 5x7s on top of the shelf. Then we accidentally printed them whole page size. And I was like, well, in color. And I was like, I can't waste it. And my EA was like, put them on the side of the shelf. And I was like, you're a genius. So we have, as they walk down the rows, they can see them. And then also on top of the shelf where they're standing, they can see them. And it matches the label. And so I find that just the words can be difficult for that. I mean, they should know the difference, but when it looks exactly the same as what's on the book, it's super helpful. And I just went with it, and it was like zero cost. I just had paper and ink in my printer. Hopefully Demco doesn't mind.
Well, and I like the continuity, and I like that there's a visual, not just words, but pictures, because you've got your English language learners who need that reassurance.
Exactly.
And so, no, I think that's important. Before we move on to talking about your space, what are some home runs when it comes to your collection? If I were to be assigned to a middle school tomorrow, I would be floundering. It would not be pretty. But what could you recommend to me would be some solid purchases when it comes to building that collection?
I would definitely say make sure your scary section is good. And then I would definitely say beef up that graphic novel section for sure.
Well, and let me just back up here, because I got to tell you, as an elementary librarian, I had students asking me for Stephen King.
Right.
And I was like, this is when It came out,
Mhm.
and one of my little kinders said, "Where's your Pennywise section?" And I'm like, I'm not gonna bite, not gonna bite. Nope, I know what you're doing. And we had a section that we called like a nightmare section. It was
There you go.
we call it was just like it was scary,
Yeah.
But what, when it comes to middle schoolers, are you buying Stephen King? What are you doing?
No, definitely
Okay.
not. When I came to this school, there was a few Stephen King novels there, and they have kind of fallen apart and died along the way. So sad. But no, definitely not Stephen King. I just kind of go with I really go with the publishers, like the different book companies that I use. I don't know if I should say the name of my favorite, but I just, kind of see what they're putting out in their catalogs and their magazines. There's a lot of new scary stuff that comes out. I wish I could think of exact titles. They love Miss Peregrine. I have all of those. School for the Peculiar Children. Is that the right word? I
Yeah.
have those. They love those. They still love the R.L. Stine. So anything he does that's new, and there still is new stuff, I definitely have those. There's a series called Zom-B, the letter B. They love that. It's weird. I don't even know what it's about. It's about zombies, obviously. Yeah, so I just kind of keep my ear to the ground and look for middle school scary books and just go with it. And when I see a series, I definitely jump on board with that.
There's a Michigan author, and I'm very biased, but and I don't think he's come out with anything recent, but he has a series called American Chillers.
Oh,
And
yes, we have those.
American Chillers, because he also did a whole series called Michigan Chillers, and it's all about the different cities around the state of
Oh,
Michigan. And
interesting.
for us, if we wanted to go meet this author, he is just. It's not hard. He's visited our school too. His name is Jonathan Rand, and I don't think he has anything out recent, but it is a very elementary school, very middle school read. It's called American Chillers, and obviously there's one for every state. And
Yes.
yeah, and it's just fun. And again, it was written for upper elementary students,
Middle
and it
school,
would be
yeah.
very,
I had
very
it in
easy.
my last elementary school. I'd never heard of them before, and they were super popular. And I brought them here to the middle school and got as many as I could. Sometimes they're hard to find, but they
Exactly.
do love those for sure. Yeah.
So, and the friends, I'll put a link in the show notes. Again,
Perfect.
I don't know how well they're if they age well, but I do know that it is incredibly accessible for your upper elementary and middle school readers, because they were in every one of my libraries when I was working elementary, for sure.
I would also say, last thing, humor. Make sure you have a good humor section beyond Diary of a Wimpy Kid. I know I've had to build on the humor section just because I like that, because the kids like Diary so much. That wimpy kid who's never going to not be wimpy, like number 20 or something. So I have those, but then try to get some other things. A lot of the funny middle school books from Patterson, the robots, lots of Captain Underpants lives there, and then just other books.
What I found, especially with my upper elementary students, were illustrated novels. And one of those, you have, was the Andy Griffiths 13-story treehouse. And then each subsequent book, the treehouse got taller and taller and taller and taller, but illustrated. So it was very fun. And, it is, I think when you incorporate and you break up some of that novel with some illustrations, it really makes the reading far more accessible and less daunting for our students who might be discouraged by a book that is increasingly getting longer as they get older. Let's pivot and start talking about our space. So, when it comes to decorations, I know people go all in on this, and I've, given how many times I've moved from space to space, I haven't been really a big fan of decorating my space. But can I ask, what have you found really does warm up your library when it comes to decorations?
I think it's just important that your library isn't stale looking. So I've walked into some libraries and the walls are all bare. and all you see is like the wooden tables and shelves of books. So I think it's just important to make it a warm and welcoming environment, however that works. We've done some things. I am all about low cost, high impact types of things. I search the dollar store. I will decorate with just cheap decorations for different, times of the year, whatever. Currently we have a lot of windows, a lot of glass in our library. So we do clings a lot. We have snowflakes all over. So we're trying to conjure up snow days. It's working too. So we're doing so good. I've bought I tried to be really cool and grow plants in the library, and we found that our library environment kills everything. So fake plants, we have some just kind of popped throughout on top of shelves away from where the middle schoolers will mess with them and try to break them because they will do that or eat them. The top shelf that no one ever uses for books because they're too high, I've got letters on one that spell out our name, our school name, some little plants, just yearbooks, different things like that, just to kind of warm up the space. One of my favorite things to do is the stick together puzzles. We usually have one of those on the table, and what I do is we cut the stickers into long strips, and as the students are checking out, if they don't have late books, that's their incentive. They can take a strip and go to the puzzle. They love to do that. They love to steal the basket and do all the stickers, but so we have to keep an eye on that. And then we put it up the finished product. We have this big space between the top of our shelf and the ceiling that was just empty wall. And so we've hung those up, and the kids are like, we made that. We did make that. And it really warms up the space. And then we kind of, as we go throughout the years, we add to it above the bookshelf and all those spaces. So just using things that they create. If you do big coloring sheets, you can hang those up. I've bought a lot of pictures on Amazon and cheap frames. And we have this weird, in between the windows, we have this whole wall of windows, which is great. But then we have these weird little tiny walls. And we've just put some different quotes from books, student artwork, things of that nature. We have a poster machine, so we've made some posters. Just warm up the environment, use the spaces you have, and don't go out and spend a ton of money. Put it on your Amazon wish list, just things of that nature to really, you spend a lot of time there. You want students to spend a lot of time there. One of my best compliments is when people say, your library is so welcoming. That's us as the staff is welcoming, but also the space makes them want to be there.
Exactly. I love that. So fantastic ideas and nothing that's going to break the bank. I will say I'm a big fan of buying the fresh flowers at the grocery store, especially when they go on double discount because they've been out for a week, and bringing those in. And every once in a while, I'll find I've been gradually trying to move over to little potted plants that are actual. They're growing. At least we have a lot of light. And every once in a while, I'll notice somebody has taken it upon themselves to water my plants.
Yes.
I was like, oh, no, you've drowned it.
Yes.
Please don't drown my plants.
Yes. Our library workers were trying to be helpful and killed them all.
No, just let the plants be. So, and I will say something that is really important is because our spaces are always part of the tour. Our spaces are always part of the building tour. And this is whether it's not just for open house, not just for back to school night. I'm talking about, hey, we've got a new family, or we have, in our case, prospective families, and they're getting the tour. And so at any time, do not be surprised when random people show up escorted by maybe somebody from the counseling center and saying, hey, we've got a prospective family. They'd like to come and see your space. Or, we've got representatives from the state or the county level who are doing sort of a space study, on how all the different, learning commons and libraries are being utilized in the county or the state. And so at any given time, our spaces are on display.
Mm-hmm. And any picture that anyone ever takes, if you notice, a school is on the news for doing something, where do they always take the picture? In the library.
Exactly. And that goes without saying. I mean, of course, every meeting, every parent meeting, every district meeting, it always happens in our space. So it's like we're on 24/7 because those meetings happen whether we know about them or not. They happen at night. They happen on the weekends. I know our spaces are used for the judges of solo and ensemble. So when we have our music festivals, all of a sudden we have every music professional from the Tri-County area coming to my learning commons, and I didn't even know it. So ready or not, here we go.
Absolutely.
All right. So when it comes to seating, what have you found with middle schoolers is the favorite form of seating that you've been able to offer for them that's affordable?
Definitely not my wooden 20-year-old tables and chairs. No one loves those at all. So when I first came to the middle school library in both places, there wasn't much. There was a couch and a couple of chairs. In one school, it was like the upholstery was books. So it was, as you might imagine, beautiful. And there was like a rug and a table. So, but we just use that. I've bought furniture from teachers. I've bought furniture from yard sales. I've bought the bean bags, which are good briefly. They don't last a long time. I would just say as much as you can do to create I like to create different areas, different vignettes of soft seating. I think it's really important that students have a soft place or a casual place, an optional place different from just the wooden tables and chairs. They like couches, and we had these, they weren't too expensive. You could buy these plastic chairs that kind of stack, and you sit on the ground, and I can get in them, but getting out of them, I'd like roll over and then kind of hoist myself up. So not for adults, but they love those. They're kind of noisy. So yeah, anytime they can just get out of a regular chair, they love. So I've scoured Amazon. I had some people donate their old lawn furniture, like their nice patio furniture. And then somebody else gave me some, it was like wrought iron, kind of like those rocky sort of chairs. And then somebody else donated some cushions. They didn't quite fit, but we made them fit. And that was very popular. And there was a little table, and they don't really care what it looks like. They just want to sit somewhere different. I've been blessed at my new school that my principal, when I came there, she's like, we want to put new furniture. And so we recently invested quite a bit of money on some nice, a nice big couch area, like a booth area, some of those like club chairs, and they love those. But even if you can't afford that, I would ask for donations. I'm just telling you that somebody's old patio furniture was a hit.
And I do think that it's awfully compelling when your solution for interior decorating becomes going to the, Facebook option to seek out donations. Sometimes that is the nudge our administrators need to then see sort of dare I say, shabby chic.
100%. There's pictures on the presentation. What it looks like. You can sort see. Shabby chic is the right word.
Yes, yes, it is sort of shabby chic. The carts that I use for the recent purchase that we have, I tell people right out, I said, no, I trash picked those. Those carts were trash picked. They went to the trash. I intercepted them. They are now here because I don't have the bookshelves to support the ESSER purchase that we recently had. We had a lovely ESSER, 2 rounds of ESSER money, and under no circumstances was my building going to get us new bookshelves, because many of them went away when the space was reimagined, which is fine. But that does mean that my shabby chic carts, which I rescued from the trash, are now featuring our brand new ESSER purchases, which is fine because people are more excited about the books than they are about the carts that they're sitting on. No big deal. No big deal. I do, and I want to mention here, because we were talking about the space, your signage that conveys the expectations of these different spaces. You have different spaces in your learning commons, in your library, and your signage does convey what this space is intended for. And I think it's important because even though you don't have distinct walled off areas, you have, like you said, these sort of areas that are rather distinct, either because of where they're located or because of the seating. And your expectations accompany the uniqueness of that space.
Yeah, so I went to a summer PD for TASL, and one of the high school librarians presented about zones in the library. So I just totally ripped this off of my friend Liz Miller. She did a great job. And I did create this signage myself. Unfortunately, I don't know where it went in the moving of schools, so the file is somewhere. I would share it with you, but I don't know where it is, but it's somewhere. And then we just printed them on the poster printers at school. So that was very low cost. I just designed them quickly in Canva. I'm sure someone could do a much better job. The color coding was important because she had suggested this like number system. So we used and one of those Atlas podium kind of things, with the drawers. We use that as our sign-in station at that school. So I did some library card pockets on the side of it, and then we just had numbers, and we had a certain amount of numbers that were allowed in each zone at a time. And this was for when kids came on their own to the library, and sometimes after the class was finished and they go to checkout. They could also, after checkout, do one of the zones. So, like, for example, we had a Lego wall and only 4 people on the Lego wall at a time because middle schoolers don't know personal space on their own. So they would we had little paper clothespins glued to the wall, and then they could just put their little number up there, and then that one's full. If there's a clip left, you can join. If not, no. And then we had little sign holders on the tables in the other areas. And if there was room for you, and if the numbers were all gone, that means you can't go to that section. That zone is full if there's a number left. And then when they're done, they just put the number back in the pocket. And I'm going to be honest, I don't use this at my current school yet. I'm working on getting this reinstated. But it was great. It was a really great way to manage the space and manage all the things that the students were doing, and not be overwhelmed with, why are there 50 kids over there or 10 kids on the Lego wall when I'm trying to help kids find books and my EA is checking out books. So I highly recommend finding some kind of zoning space. And then there was a quiet zone. And so if people were taking a test or doing homework or just wanted to read, and there was seating over there for that, they would go over there and actually utilize that. I thought it would be empty all the time. But they really did utilize the quiet zone because sometimes they just want quiet. And it was kind of separated.
Yeah, so help me out here. Did each of the students have like a clothespin, or how did they delineate who was going to each of those sections?
Yeah, it was kind of a first come, first served basis. If they were signing into the library, then they would sign in and check where they were going. If they were with the class, then they would just go over and pick a number. If they were being wild or crazy, then I would just say, go to the back of the line. You're not going to be first. And then at each station, there was either a clip or there was like little wire, like when you have a place card holder at a wedding. I bought some of those cheap off Amazon, and they could just stick it in there. There's, different ways you could do that at the table. There were signs at each area of like the expectations. This is what you can do. This is what you shouldn't do. This is how many, and really the number was based on how many of those pre-made cards we had made. And then once those numbers were gone, they had to wait for one to come back to go to that spot.
Well, and I think that, we all have to make some sort of accommodation and sort of modify this to our space. I know at the high school level, our students have their phones. Mm-hmm. And at some point, I don't want to listen to whatever it is you're showing your friends.
Oh.
I don't.
No.
I don't. If I am listening from across the room, it was funny. I have students who, because of the echo in my space, I can hear a great deal that I don't want to hear. And sometimes I'll just chime in on the conversation, and they look up and realize, I can hear you. And they're like, oh. I'm like, yeah. So no, I think that
that's always my favorite thing, hearing what they don't think you can hear.
No, it's okay. Every once we just have to say, listen, if you don't want me to hear everything you're talking about, take it down just a little bit.
For sure.
Oh my goodness. So tell me, when it comes to activities, so you've started to talk about a few of them. What are some of the things that you absolutely would have in any middle school library that you would create?
So this might sound silly, but it's crazy how popular this is. When I first moved to my new school, no disrespect to any of the librarians before me, they did the best they could. They did a great job, if they're listening. The one thing that I did is I got checkers and chess. I know, this is earth-shattering things right here. Checkers and chess. I bought the big, we have Cracker Barrel. Do y'all have Cracker Barrel in Michigan these days? Yeah.
Oh, yes.
So Cracker Barrel.
We don't have Waffle House. We do have Cracker Barrel.
You do have Cracker Barrel. Okay. It's been a long time since I've been back to Michigan.
Yes.
So at Cracker Barrel, they have the big checker set you can buy them cheap on Amazon. So I had noticed that kids liked that. I bought it on a whim and they liked that. So I have several of those, usually always out on a table. And then the bigger chess sets that are like weighted, so they're less likely to put them in their pocket. And I had a couple of those out. And I'm telling you, you'd think that it was like a wrestling match or a national championship basketball game, the way that the kids crowd around the tables to watch someone play chess. It's weird, but I've heard that happens everywhere. So I would highly recommend, it was a huge impact. The teachers were like, this is so great. The library is awesome. And I was like, literally, y'all, I bought some checkers and chess, not earth-shattering. So I think that's a good way to start with some activities. The way that I like to do it is when my students check out, they're supposed to check out a book. That's their expectation. And then once they're done checking out, they can pick an activity to do to entertain them. That could be reading the book. Absolutely. We have space for that. Playing checkers or chess. I also have included other games. I have several different board games. Try to pick ones that they can play fast. So Connect 4 is popular. Uno is super popular. Things like that. Fast kind of games like that. We have kind of a wall where they can just take them. But the checkers and the chess kind of always sit out on some of our tables in the back where I don't teach.
Well, and I always think Othello, am I dating myself? Othello was one of my favorite games. And it boasts it takes 5 minutes to learn and a lifetime to master. I mean, I grew up playing Othello because the adults were busy playing chess, and they found that my attention span for chess was very limited, but I could master Othello. But yes, I mean, I would throw that in there as well. So let me ask you, when it comes to your Mayhem in the Middle presentation, I feel like this presentation was sort of designed as if you were sort of handing your space over to another librarian. This seems very intuitive, like I'm going to hand this space over to somebody, and this is, these are sort of my non-negotiables. These are some things that you absolutely must know about this space when you come into it. So let's talk about, again, there's so much visually going on in the presentations which you shared with us, but is there something special about the scheduling that you would absolutely encourage other middle school librarians to learn from, given your years of experience?
Absolutely. So I struggled with this, having come from elementary library where the schedule was set for me to middle school library where I was completely flexible. I struggled a lot with getting, just because of the way that I came into the school and there was already a precedence, having to go to PLCs and beg the teachers to come see me, and kind of figuring out how I want that to schedule, but also leaving time to do all the things that I need to do as a librarian, and also time to do things that I want to do as a librarian. So kind of balancing that was a real struggle, to get the classes in timely, to make sure I was teaching some things that are important, but also giving them time for checkout, not taking too much of their teaching time, because they come for the most part during their English language arts classes, but also wanting to be able to collaborate with other subjects and do other kinds of projects. So I'm still not a master of this. I'm not going to claim to be. But I feel like I've kind of found the sweet spot. And I got it from my great friend, Chris Prince. I don't know if he's going to listen, but he's a librarian here in my county. Again, networking, listening to others is so good. I was voicing my struggle at a meeting we had. Every now and then we get together as county librarians. And I was like, I just struggle with this scheduling. And he said, this is what I do. And so when I went to my new school, they said, you tell us and we'll come when you tell us. And I was like, oh, I was like, really? They were like, you just tell us and we'll show up. Well, that was different. So I was like, okay, well, now I have all this power. How am I going to, wield it? So what I came up with was what Chris had mentioned and a couple other people. So there's 5 days in a week typically. So 3 of them I tend to teach because the way that my school is set up, I have 3 grades, 6th, 7th, and 8th, and they're divided into mini schools, A, B, and C, just randomly. But that's how. So we have about almost 1,200 students. Obviously, you would want to do this however your population works. My other school, we had less, so I could have modified it. But this one's pretty big. So usually Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I see students. So 1 week I'll see 6th grade, A 1 day, B 1 day, C 1 day. There's 2 ELA teachers in each mini school, but they're there for a block. So one period, one comes, the other period, the other comes, and then we switch throughout the day. So I see all of that mini school in 1 day. So I see a whole grade in a week. And that leaves me usually, not in January, but usually Mondays and Fridays, or if I need to switch to different days, it leaves me some leeway to work on cataloging books, ordering, doing all the other things, all the laptop things that I have to do. And then also gives me some days if I want to collaborate with another subject. So that seems to work for me. So they come about every 3 weeks. Like I said, sometimes it ends up being really once a month, but in the grand scheme of things, but they come about every 3 weeks. So we make their books due every 3 weeks. They always check out. And then every other time I say, pretty much not always, but every other time I say, can I have them for the period and teach some kind of lesson? And the teachers were like, sure. And I was like, and then that gives you time where you can just come in and check out. So I'm not taking up too much of your time. Or a lot of times they opt to stay the whole period, but let the kids do the activities instead. Because we do have makerspace activities as well as games, as well as reading and other things available. We have 3D printers and all that kind of stuff. So, and a lot of times they opt for that. And then sometimes the closer we get to the testing window, they're like, yeah, we're just going to come. Or with 8th graders, the closer we get to May, they're like, I can't even walk them down the hall. So I'm just going to send a couple at a time. And that's fine too. I say whatever works for you as long as the kids are coming. And it has worked out really well. And this is my 3rd year. It's worked out really well. So I make the schedule ahead of time, usually about a month in advance, because if I try, something comes up. But they're super cool about being flexible with all that. But that way I can see all of them and I'm able to do my orientation. I've taught, email. Like I always teach email etiquette to 6th graders because they don't know how to do that. I'm currently in an AI lesson, so I'm teaching all of the grades like about AI, and we're using generative AI. So I don't teach anything like life-changing or profound.
Well, now wait. When it comes to middle school and AI, is there a particular AI platform that you have found is something your building can agree on, your district can agree on?
So we do have permission to use school AI with the students, and it's pretty good. And then I just found a lesson in Common Sense Education that's free. And actually, it's in Nearpod, and our district uses Nearpod. So there's an integrated lesson. So they just walk through that. We just do that lesson together. We do the first one, which is what is AI, what is generative AI, and what are the pros and cons. We have a good ethical discussion. And then I send them to school AI, and they interact with a couple of chatbots.
Cool.
And then we talk about their historical figures.
Yep.
So like 8th grade Dr. Frederick Douglass, Martin Luther King, and Abraham Lincoln. And I'm just like, how do you feel about this? We just kind of talk about ethics and, what it's just a tool. AI is a tool like any other tool, and it's up to you what you do with the tool. And so just trying to get them to think, just because you can ask ChatGPT to write your essay or to do your homework doesn't mean you should. And just kind of talking about that. Because I think they think because I can, I should. And especially with middle school, you really just have to say it's not any different than asking your neighbor to write your essay. It's still cheating.
Got it.
So anyways, but that's off subject.
So I want to fly through the next couple of these. But, when it comes to, you have student workers. And do you have student workers for all grade levels, or is there a sweet spot where you sort of have a core group of students? And can you give us the sort of rundown on what works best for you when it comes to your student workers?
Sure. Student workers have been a challenge for me to figure out because in elementary school, I didn't use them. So I have them for all grades. We have intervention periods. We call it cav time because we're the Cavaliers. So each grade has a different period that's their intervention time. And it's a great time for me to tap into some of those kids that don't necessarily need intervention. So they apply online at the beginning of the year. I get way more applicants than I need. So I kind of comb through it and pick usually like 2 kids, 3. I've found for me more than 3, and it's a party. Like when we had 4, they're just hanging out, having a good old time. Other people have said that they can use them. Well, I just can't manage more than that many. So for me, 2 is the sweet spot because they're not alone, but they also aren't having a party. And they're not outnumbering us adults in the room. So, so I usually have them apply, and then I have to check with their teachers, make sure they can miss intervention, make sure they don't have any behavior problems, things of that nature. And then we have them shelving books, checking out books, and then any other kind of tasks, dusting, cleaning, running errands, things of that nature. I did institute last year, a student tech help desk, because I'm also in charge of all of the 1,200 laptops for the school. And I was constantly being interrupted with issues, which I found, like a hard restart fixes everything. So, or it can't be fixed and they need a loaner. And that's just time I have to get one, check it out, put their name on it. Like it's a whole process. So I've gotten student workers that help me with that. I got one of the carols that we had, all those, library carols, and I drug one over next to the circulation desk and I gave them a little office chair. We put a sign on it. They have their own Post-it notes and just like a list of things to do as far as like troubleshooting. And then when in doubt, just give them a loaner, check it out. And then they put what's wrong with it on a sticky note, give it to my EA who puts in the work order, and then it goes to the tech guy to fix it. It's a beautiful thing that works most of the time. I still have to intervene on occasion, broken screens and payments and such and passwords, but it's really great. And so I usually have maybe 1 tech worker, 1 library worker, sometimes 2 library workers and a tech worker, but they kind of all know what to do. They kind of cross-train so they can help with those kinds of things. And it is really helpful, especially like lunchtime for us, all of the intervention time. And we also call that our tech time. So the students are really only supposed to come during that time with issues. And so that's really helpful because it's lunchtime. And so we can eat our lunch and they do the work.
It's a beautiful thing.
And then we don't have to close. We can always stay open, which I'm an advocate for always being open if possible.
So you've got different workers for each class period.
Right. So for at least 3 periods a day. And then occasionally I have other students that want to come instead of their exploratory class or their special areas. So I have like maybe 1 student at other times of the day. But for me, less is more. When there's a bunch of them, then I find that I'm managing them instead of managing the library. So
Exactly. Katie Capshaw, I am so grateful. You've been incredibly generous. Your expertise is clear and evident in the work that you put together in the presentations. None of us here could attend your sessions when you gave them, but you generously gave them to us today. I am so grateful. Could you give us an idea of, do you have a preferred social media platform if somebody wanted to reach out and connect with you?
Yeah, I would say probably Instagram is the best way to find me. I am on TikTok. I am on X. I'm on Bluesky. I am on all the things. But Instagram is probably the one I'm best at. I'm really working hard on TikToks now that it's alive again, but maybe not too much in case it goes away again. So, but yeah, Instagram I probably would answer the fastest.
Okay.
So, and it's at mrscapshawbooks.bsky.social. books right now. I'm thinking of rebranding, so we'll see.
Well, and we'll put those links in the show notes, friends. Katie Capshaw, thank you so much. I know you and I are both enjoying a cold day. We are not at work.
Yes.
This is lovely.
No.
Tennessee and Michigan under this sort of polar vortex, which we managed to dodge the snow, which thankfully just hit, Louisiana. But I think we're
the beach.
Yes, we're both going back to school tomorrow. So the opportunity was now. And so thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate everything you've shared with us. And I hope you have a fantastic 2025.
You too. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for tuning in to our conversation today. Don't miss out on the 2 fantastic presentations which Katie so generously shared with us in today's show notes. And if you are looking to do a deep dive into middle school library best practices, then click on the playlists link in the show notes of all our episodes. There you'll find a middle school playlist and 14 past episodes filled with veteran strategies and free resources, and most importantly, guests who have dedicated their careers to supporting middle schoolers every day. If you found this episode helpful, please share it out with your team, your PLN, and on social media. Be sure to follow on your favorite podcatcher so you'll never miss an episode. And if you really like listening today, consider leaving a review wherever you listen to podcasts. Reviews help others find us. Be sure to visit Learnix at www.learnics.com to learn more and to schedule a demo. Enjoy Learnix for the remainder of the year at half the price. And if you mention that you heard about Learnix on School Librarians United, you will receive 20% off your subscription. The topic of our next episode will be District Reading Celebrations and my conversation with Melissa Rippey. I hope you will tune in.